Neuropower Talks, written in the style of Dr. Tara Swart. Let me tell you something that will shatter the mirror of everything you've believed about fat loss. It doesn't begin in your thighs. It doesn't begin in your belly. It doesn't begin with your calories or your macros or your meal plan or your personal trainer shouting from the sidelines. Fat loss begins in the one place almost nobody looks, the brain. The war for your body is fought in your mind before it's ever won in your flesh. And if you don't rewire the very engine of your habits, you will spend your entire life chasing weight instead of shedding it. You will sweat and strain and starve and still be shackled to the same patterns. Why? Because your brain is the command center. And if the command center isn't reprogrammed, the body can't obey. You think fat loss starts with the food on your plate. But no, it starts with the conversation in your mind, before you even touch the fork. Before your hand reaches the fridge, before your feet hit the gym floor, long before the sweat, long before the grind, long before you even try, it begins in the quiet battlefield between your neurons, in the invisible place where decisions are born and identity is shaped. Fat loss starts in the brain because the body is just a reflection of patterns, a reflection of beliefs, a reflection of unspoken thoughts on loop. Your biology follows your neurology. And if you don't understand this, you will spend your life trying to fix the symptom while feeding the cause. You'll blame your metabolism, your genes, your hormones, your busy life. But your brain is the gatekeeper. And until it is rewired, your body cannot follow a new command. You've been programmed. That's not your fault. Your brain, like every human brain, seeks efficiency, safety, and repetition. So every time you've repeated a pattern, comfort eating, skipping movement, collapsing into the couch instead of pushing through your limits, your brain has stored that pattern as the path of least resistance. And your brain loves the easy path. It doesn't care if the pattern makes you happy. It only cares if the pattern is familiar. It doesn't ask, is this good for me? It asks, have I done this before? And if the answer is yes, the brain fires the signal, do it again. Your brain is the operating system. Your body is just the hardware. You can try to diet your way out of your body's habits, but if the code running in your brain hasn't changed, your body will reboot the same story every time. That's why people lose 20 pounds and gain back 30. That's why you can commit for a month, feel the fire, see the results, and then sabotage it all in a weekend. Because deep beneath your conscious mind, a subconscious script is still running the show. The basal ganglia, your brain's habit center, does not understand goals. It only understands repetition. So you say, I want to lose weight, but your basal ganglia says, we eat when we're anxious, we skip workouts when we're tired, we stay in bed when it's raining. Your brain doesn't care what you want, it only cares what you practice. And whatever you practice, it preserves. So if you want to change your body, you don't start with motivation, you start with the circuitry. You start by becoming conscious of what you've unconsciously rehearsed for years. You start by questioning the autopilot. Why do I reach for sugar when I'm overwhelmed? Why do I avoid the gym when I feel inadequate? Why do I give up after one mistake, one missed workout, one bad meal? These aren't surface level behaviors. These are embedded commands, and they are running your life. This is not about blame. This is about power. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are neurologically patterned. But here's the miracle. The brain is plastic. It can change. It is built to rewire, adapt, reshape. That's the gift of neuroplasticity. That's the real starting line. You can't hate your body into transformation, but you can rewire your brain into alignment with the future you crave. And it begins the moment you stop seeing your fat loss journey as physical, when you stop thinking it's about working harder or eating cleaner or pushing more. It's not about intensity, it's about identity, because every behavior begins with a belief. If deep down you believe I've always struggled with my weight, then your brain will organize your behavior to match that story, even when you try to change, even when you feel inspired, even when you commit, because the subconscious always wins against short-term effort. That's not your failure, that's biology. But what if you flipped the script? What if you stopped fighting your brain and started training it? You train a muscle through repetition. You train the brain the same way. Every time you make a new choice, every time you interrupt the binge, every time you go for the walk instead of the snack, every time you sit with discomfort instead of silencing it with food, you weaken the old neural pathway, and simultaneously, you begin to build a new one. It feels awkward at first, it feels wrong, your brain will resist because it craves familiarity. But this is not a sign you're failing, this is a sign you're rewiring. Discomfort is the signal of growth. The tremble is the truth. And eventually, if you keep choosing the new path, your brain will shift. The unfamiliar will become familiar, the resistance will weaken, the new habit will embed itself. And when that happens, fat loss becomes a byproduct, not a punishment. Because now your choices are aligned with your identity. You're not forcing change, you're living change. And that's when it sticks. Your body becomes the expression of the new neural reality you've built. The fat begins to release not because you hate your body, but because you've stopped feeding the story that kept it stuck. You're not eating to cope. You're not moving out of guilt. You're living in alignment. And the body follows that truth. Let's go deeper. Your brain processes over 6,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are subconscious. Most of them are recycled. If the majority of those thoughts are negative about your body, your worth, your failure, your actions will match. You cannot build a healthy body from a toxic mind. You cannot create sustainable fat loss while running an internal dialogue of shame and self-attack. That's why willpower fails. Because willpower doesn't rewire. Willpower runs out. But belief is renewable. So what are you believing? What are you rehearsing? What is the inner voice saying every time you walk past a mirror, every time you look at a plate of food, every time you step on a scale? Your brain is listening. Your brain is absorbing. Your brain is shaping your behavior from those whispers. It's time to speak differently. It's time to claim a new script. I am becoming. I am changing. I am building a brain that supports my goals, not sabotages them. I am interrupting decades of conditioning and building something new. This is not about being perfect. This is about being powerful. Let's talk about the prefrontal cortex, your decision-making center. It's the part of your brain responsible for long-term thinking, impulse control, and goal setting. When it's activated, you are intentional, you are strategic, you are in control. But when you're stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally triggered, the prefrontal cortex goes offline and the limbic brain takes over. That's the emotional center. That's where cravings and reactions live. That's when you eat the thing you said you wouldn't. That's when you skip the workout you planned, not because you're weak, but because your brain shifted from conscious to survival mode. That's why mindfulness is not just a trend. It's a neural tool. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you breathe through a craving, every time you label an emotion instead of suppressing it with food, you re-engage the prefrontal cortex. You bring your brain back online. You build the muscle of awareness. And awareness is the birthplace of choice. You are not your impulses. You are not your patterns. You are the awareness underneath them. You are the conscious force that can say, I see this pattern, I feel this craving, but I choose differently, not out of restriction, but out of power. This is the real transformation, not just pounds lost, but programming rewritten, not just workouts done, but circuits rerouted, not just food tracked, but identity reclaimed. You don't need more motivation, you need more repetition of the right thought. You don't need a better diet, you need a better dialogue with yourself. You don't need to fight your body, you need to train your brain. This is brain-first fat loss. This is neural dominance. This is power, not punishment. And it begins the moment you stop trying to change your body for approval and start changing your brain for alignment. You think hunger starts in the stomach, but let me tell you the truth most people spend their whole lives avoiding. The hunger that keeps you stuck isn't physical. It's emotional, it's ancient. It's rooted in memory, in trauma, in the silent ache beneath the surface of your skin. And you will never lose the weight for good until you stop feeding your emotions and start listening to them. Because it's not the chocolate you're craving, it's relief. It's not the chips or the pizza or the ice cream, it's the feeling of being held. It's the peace of knowing you're safe. It's the rush of dopamine when the world feels dull. You're not hungry for food, you're hungry for escape, for rest, for softness, for comfort. And your brain, trained by years of repetition, believes that food is the fastest way to get there. This is not your fault. You are not broken. You're not undisciplined or weak. You are simply wired. Wired by your experiences, wired by what your caregivers did or didn't give you, wired by moments when your tears weren't safe, your voice was too loud, your needs too much. Somewhere along the line, food became your friend. And in a world where you had to survive, that was genius, that was brilliant. Your brain adapted, it found a way to soothe, it found a way to numb the pain. But what saved you then is now what's suffocating you, because you've built your coping strategies into rituals. You've turned sugar into sanctuary. And now every time life feels like too much, the child in you, the part that never felt fully seen, grabs the nearest thing that brings peace. And that thing is food. It's not just a habit. It's a self-soothing mechanism. It's an emotional anchor. And that's why willpower can't fix it, because willpower doesn't heal wounds, only awareness does. Only radical honesty does. Ask yourself, when do you eat when you're not hungry? When the house is quiet, when you feel lonely, when work overwhelms you, when the silence gets too loud, when the shame creeps in? That's not your body talking, that's your nervous system. That's the brain interpreting emotional discomfort as danger and reaching for what has always provided safety. The amygdala doesn't distinguish between a lion chasing you and an argument with your partner. It doesn't know the difference between true physical starvation and emotional emptiness. It just senses threat. It just senses stress. And when stress rises, your brain seeks immediate comfort, fast, predictable, familiar. And for many, that comfort is food. You see, when we eat, especially sugar and fat, the brain releases dopamine, a surge of pleasure, a chemical sigh. For a moment, everything feels okay. The pain fades. The tension dissolves. You get to disappear from the weight of your world. But it's temporary, because once the dopamine fades, the original emotion is still there, still pulsing beneath the surface, and now it's wrapped in guilt. Now it's tangled in shame. So what do? You eat again. Not because you're hungry, but because you're hurt. This is the real cycle. Not calories in, calories out. It's pain in, food out. It's emotion in, silence out. You've used food to mute your inner world. But here's the truth. No amount of food will fill the emotional void. You can eat until your body aches, but it won't heal the child who needed love and got ignored. It won't erase the relationship that made you feel invisible. It won't undo the years of emotional suppression, because the hunger isn't in your belly, it's in your soul. So if you want to transform your body, you have to stop avoiding your feelings. You have to stop using food as a translator for what you're too afraid to say. You have to stop numbing, stop running, stop hiding from the truth of what you feel. Because the brain only holds onto the coping mechanism when it believes the feeling underneath is too dangerous to face. But your feelings aren't dangerous. They are data. They are messages. They are sacred signals. And they are the key to your freedom. Every time you feel a craving come up, don't run. Pause. Ask yourself, what am I really hungry for? Is it love? Is it peace? Is it connection? Is it relief from pressure? Or the unbearable need to be perfect, to be liked, to be seen? Get radically honest. Because the moment you name the emotion, you break the pattern, you bring the prefrontal cortex, the conscious mind, back online. You give yourself power, and that power disrupts the automatic reaction. Most of us were never taught to feel, we were taught to perform, to please, to push things down and move on. But emotions don't disappear. They get stored in the brain, in the nervous system, in the cells. And the longer they stay trapped, the louder they scream. Through anxiety, through fatigue, through cravings, through chronic sabotage. Until you pause long enough to feel them, they will run your life in the background, while you blame your body for what your brain is actually carrying. This is emotional weight, and it's heavier than fat. You cannot diet away emotional weight. You cannot exercise away unprocessed grief. You cannot starve your way into healing. That's why so many people lose the pounds but still feel miserable, because they never dealt with the root. They cut the branches but left the tree. They hated their bodies but never hugged the child inside, who never learnt to feel safe. True fat loss starts when you stop feeding your fear and start facing it. And it takes courage. It takes daily courage to sit with an emotion and not silence it, to feel sadness without dessert, to feel anger without alcohol, to feel boredom without stimulation. Your brain will resist. It will scream for the familiar comfort. But if you stay with yourself, if you breathe, if you cry, if you journal, if you let it pass, something changes. You realize you don't need food to feel okay. You don't need to eat your way through your emotions. You learn that you are strong enough to sit with what is. And in that space, fat loss becomes more than physical. It becomes spiritual. You're no longer carrying pain in your body. You're not storing emotion as fat. You're not burying shame under sugar. You're metabolizing your emotions instead of eating them. And your body, in turn, begins to release not just the pounds, but the stories, the wounds, the patterns. And yes, you will still get cravings, but now you'll recognize them for what they are: signals, invitations, reminders to come home to yourself. And with time, you'll find new ways to comfort yourself, ways that nourish instead of numb. A walk, a journal, a breathwork session, a phone call to someone who sees you. You'll build a new language for your emotions, one where food is no longer your only translator. You'll stop fearing hunger because you'll know the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. You'll start to trust your body again. You'll start to ask it what it needs instead of assuming it always wants to sabotage you. You'll start punishing yourself for coping the only way you knew how. You'll begin to honor the incredible intelligence your brain had in creating these mechanisms, and you'll gently teach it new ones. That's the essence of neural healing. Not force, not restriction, not shame, but compassion, patience, a new language of self-awareness that starts with one single question: what am I really hungry for? You ask that question enough times and eventually your brain will stop screaming for sugar, because it will know it's being heard, because it will feel safe, because it won't need to reach outside of you for something that was always waiting to be met from within. That is the transformation. That is the freedom. That is when fat loss becomes effortless, not because you force your body into submission, but because your brain is no longer running from itself. And in that moment, you don't just lose weight, you shed a lifetime of self-abandonment. You become whole. You think your body needs more discipline, more rules, more restriction, but what your brain truly needs is safety. Fat loss doesn't begin with cutting carbs or burning calories. It begins the moment your nervous system feels secure enough to let go. Because your body doesn't release what it believes it needs for survival, and your brain is the gatekeeper of that belief. Your brain is not wired to make you lean. It is wired to keep you alive. Every single function in your body, your appetite, your fat storage, your hunger hormones, is being regulated by a 24-hour internal surveillance system. And that system, more than anything, is scanning for one thing: threat. Not just physical threat, perceived threat, emotional, financial, social, environmental. Anything that signals danger to the nervous system, anything that says we're not safe right now, will trigger a physiological cascade that tells the body: store fat, hold energy, slow down metabolism, protect at all costs. When you live in a constant state of stress, your brain can't tell whether the threat is a wild animal, an unpaid bill, or your own inner critic punishing you with every glance in the mirror. The brain doesn't differentiate, it just reacts. Cortisol spikes, insulin dysregulates, the sympathetic nervous system floods the body, and even if you're doing everything, right? Eating less, exercising more, your body holds on because your brain has told it we're not safe enough to let go. Fat in that moment becomes protection, not punishment. It becomes insulation from a hostile world, a buffer between you and the pain, a storage unit for survival. And until the brain feels calm, the body will not surrender, because to the subconscious, holding on to fat is not failure, it's wisdom. It's the body obeying the mind's deeper fear. What if I need this later? What if danger returns? What if this is all I have? So you try to fight biology with willpower. You restrict, you starve, you punish. And the brain, sensing deprivation, tightens its grip. It slows your metabolism. It spikes your cravings. It floods your thoughts with obsession over food, not because you're addicted, not because you're weak, but because your survival brain believes something is being taken from you, and it will do whatever it takes to get it back. We don't lose weight sustainably by forcing the body into submission. We lose it by teaching the brain that we are safe, that we are not under attack, that we are nourished, held, grounded, supported. We do it by regulating the nervous system so the subconscious can finally exhale. So the ancient parts of us, built for war, built for famine, built for threat, can relax into peace. And only then does the body begin to release. Because cortisol is not just a stress hormone, it is a fat retention signal. When it's elevated, your body prioritizes survival over aesthetics. It breaks down muscle, it stores fat, especially around the midsection. It hijacks sleep, it dysregulates appetite, it makes you crave sugar, not out of weakness, but out of instinct. Your brain is not sabotaging you, it's protecting you, but it's doing it based on perception, and perception can be changed. This is the real key. The brain is a meaning-making machine, and when your inner world is full of chaos, self-judgment, fear, scarcity, your nervous system absorbs it as threat. Every time you step on the scale and say, "I'm not enough," your body hears, "We are under attack." Every time you skip meals to punish yourself, your body hears, "We are starving." Every time you work out to punish, not celebrate, your body hears, "We are in danger." The biology responds accordingly. But the reverse is also true. When you speak to yourself with compassion, when you fuel your body with presence, when you move with joy, not obligation, you signal safety. You tell your nervous system, "We are okay now." And the brain, receiving that message, releases its grip. Cortisol lowers, digestion improves, sleep deepens, inflammation drops, hormones rebalance, and fat begins to melt, not because you're chasing it, but because you've removed the signal that said you needed it. You don't just lose weight by burning calories, you lose it by burning the belief that you're in constant danger. You lose it by ending the war inside. You lose it by building a brain that trusts the present moment, that no longer lives in fight or flight, that no longer treats your body like the enemy. This is the work. Not more control, but more connection. Not more pushing, but more pausing. Can you breathe into your stress before you try to change your behavior? Can you name what you feel without letting it run your life? Can you slow down long enough to hear what your nervous system is trying to say? Because every binge, every craving, every cycle of sabotage, it's not laziness, it's communication. Your body is not betraying you, it's begging you to listen. The headaches, the bloating, the fatigue, the compulsions, those are all messages from a brain that has been trapped in survival. A brain that learnt long ago that the world is not safe. And your job now is to build a new message, a new pattern, a new neurological reality, where your brain is no longer anticipating attack, but expecting peace. You do that by creating rituals of regulation, breathwork, stillness, meditation, journaling, therapy, movement that honors the body, not punishes it, food that supports, not restricts, words that affirm, not degrade. These are not luxuries. These are the tools that tell your brain we are no longer at war. The moment you stop living in a state of emergency, your biology recalibrates. The body stops clinging, the mind stops spiraling, you begin to trust your own signals again. Hunger, fullness, rest, effort, because the fog of cortisol has lifted, because the fear has been met with presence, because the body finally feels seen. And here's the part no one talks about. Your nervous system remembers everything. It remembers childhood meals that came with shame. It remembers the first time you used food to silence your tears. It remembers the tension in your household, the silence at the dinner table, the punishment of every mistake. Your adult cravings are echoes of childhood wounds. And the healing doesn't happen with macros. It happens with emotional safety, with nervous system repair, with building an internal world that no longer mirrors the chaos you were raised in. You cannot starve your way out of trauma. You cannot over-exercise your way out of a dysregulated brain. What you can do is create new safety, new truth. You can tell your brain again and again, I am safe now, I am home now, I don't have to fight anymore. And slowly, the brain begins to believe you, the nervous system begins to settle, and the body responds. This is the paradox. When you stop obsessing over fat loss and start obsessing over safety, fat loss happens. Because your biology stops resisting, because the brain no longer sends the signal, protect. It starts sending the signal, release. So no, the goal is not more restriction, it's more regulation. The goal is not to burn your body into submission. It's to teach your brain that peace is possible, that you can live in a body you love, not because you controlled it into perfection, but because you created the safety for it to evolve, because you learned how to regulate your nervous system, because you turned off the alarm that's been blaring inside you for years. And yes, it takes time, but this is the real transformation. This is the fat loss that doesn't rebound. This is the lifestyle that doesn't feel like a war. This is the path where your brain and body become allies, not enemies. You've been told that fat loss is about action, about doing more, pushing harder, grinding through another plan, another program, another set of rules. But the truth they never taught you, is that fat loss doesn't start with what you do, it starts with what you believe. Because your brain cannot create a reality it doesn't think is possible. It cannot build a body it doesn't think you're worthy of. Every cell in your body listens to the story you tell about yourself. And if that story is rooted in shame, in punishment, in fear, your body won't transform. It will protect, it will brace, it will hold on. That's the part no one sees, the invisible wall, the subconscious script playing behind every choice you make, the quiet voice that whispers, you've failed before, you'll fail again. You think it's about food. It's not. It's about identity, because behavior follows belief. And if the belief is broken, the behavior will be too. You cannot build consistency on the foundation of self-rejection. You cannot sustain healthy choices if your brain is still clinging to a version of you that sees yourself as the problem. That's why it always feels like sabotage, why you start strong, then collapse, because the part of you trying to change is still carrying the identity of someone who, and identity always wins. But listen to me now, identity can be rewritten. Your brain is not fixed. It is fluid, it is plastic, it is constantly reshaping itself in response to what you feed it. And not just with food, with thoughts, with stories, with images, with beliefs. The most powerful fat loss tool you will ever access isn't in your pantry or your gym, it's in your mindset. Because when you start telling a new story about who you are, about what you're capable of, your brain rewires around it. It starts looking for evidence to confirm it. It starts shifting your actions to match it. And the body follows. You must understand this. The brain is a prediction machine. It creates your reality not based on truth, but based on expectation. If you expect to fail, your brain will filter out opportunities for success. If you expect to struggle, it will hyper-focus on obstacles. If you believe you can't trust yourself, your choices will mirror that. But if you shift the belief, if you start telling your brain, this time is different, I am safe, I am strong, I am becoming someone new, your subconscious begins to obey. It rewrites the script. It reclaims your power. And that's when fat loss stops being something you chase and starts being something you embody. Because here's the truth, no diet will ever give you. Sustainable fat loss isn't about achieving a goal. It's about becoming the person who no longer needs to escape themselves. It's about stepping into an identity that makes sabotage irrelevant. An identity rooted in alignment, not punishment. In vision, not fear. You don't stay consistent by force. You stay consistent because it's who you are now, because your beliefs finally match your behavior. And when the inside matches the outside, when your brain no longer doubts your worth, your body becomes a mirror for that wholeness. You eat to fuel, not to cope. You move because it feels good, not because you're trying to erase yourself. You rest without guilt, You speak kindly to your reflection. You no longer live in reaction, you live in creation. That is real transformation. That is neuroalchemy. That is the power of identity-first fat loss. But you must be willing to let go of the old self, the one addicted to the struggle, the one who found comfort in chaos, the one who wore failure like a second skin. That identity served you once, but it cannot take you where you are going. You must bury the story of not enough. You must retire the script that says this time will be like all the others. You must choose to believe something new before the evidence appears, because the brain needs vision to rewrite its predictions. And yes, it will feel unfamiliar. Your subconscious will resist. The ego will whisper, "Who do you think you are?" And your job is to answer, "I am becoming. I am becoming someone who shows up, someone who doesn't quit, someone who values peace more than punishment, someone who builds, not battles, someone who lives as if they are already free." Because that's the secret. The brain doesn't wait until the goal is achieved. It responds to who you believe you are. And when that belief shifts, the brain shifts. The behaviors shift. The nervous system softens. The weight, both physical and emotional, begins to fall away. So no more chasing fat loss from a place of fear. No more using discipline as a disguise for self-loathing. No more waiting until the scale gives you permission to love yourself. You start now. You start with belief. You start with identity. Because when the brain believes you are safe, worthy, powerful, the body becomes a reflection of that safety, that worth, that power. And that is where the real work begins. Not in the gym, not in the kitchen, but in the mirror, in the story you tell, in the way you see yourself when no one else is looking. Reclaim that, own that, speak to your brain with authority, and let it rebuild you from the inside out. This is what we do here at Neuro Power Talks. We don't just inspire, we rewire. We challenge the biology of fear with the energy of belief. We build from the brain forward, because we know fat loss is not a body problem, it's a brain decision. And the moment you reclaim your mind, your body will follow. So take a breath, let go of the old identity, step forward into the version of you that has already arrived. She is waiting, she is ready, and now so are you. Let's begin.